title of my message today morning is The Time of Jeremiah's Ministry. So I'd like to do an overview of the book of Jeremiah. And if any of you have read through the book of Jeremiah, you would understand that it's quite confusing, or can be quite confusing. So we'll just do an overview of the book of Jeremiah. And Jeremiah was a prophet, and as I think it was last Sunday that I preached on this. He was one of the 7 different types of pillars. He was an iron pillar. In Jeremiah 1:17, we just heard, it says, "Thou therefore gird up thy loins and arise and speak unto them all that I command thee. Be not dismayed at their faces, lest I confound thee before them. For behold, I have made thee this day a defenced city, and an iron pillar, and brazen walls against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, against the princes thereof, against the priests thereof, and against the people of the land. And they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee, for I am with thee, saith the Lord, to deliver thee." So God is telling Jeremiah that he's going to have to preach to the children of Judah, and they're going to fight against him. So God's telling him up front, they're going to fight against you, but they're not going to prevail against you, because God's with them. So in Jeremiah 1 verse 2, it says, "To whom the word of the Lord came in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, in the 13th year of his reign. It came also in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, unto the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, unto the carrying away of Jerusalem captive in the 5th month." So this is quite a long ministry. He starts off in the 13th year of King Josiah. And King Josiah was a righteous king, but his dad was Ammon, who was really wicked. And Ammon's dad was Manasseh, who was also very wicked, but towards the end of his life, he actually repented. But it was too late for his son, I guess. He already taught him how to be wicked. And then Manasseh's dad was Hezekiah, who was also a righteous king. So he started in the 13th year of King Josiah. And so back then they didn't have the year 1986 or 2019. They had the 3rd year of King so-and-so, or like the 13th year of King Josiah. That's the calendar kind of reset when they had a new king. That's how they kept track. So he went through, I think, 4 kings of Judah. It lists 3 of them here in verse 3. So that's quite a long ministry, but how long is it? We'll find out a little bit later. The Bible, of course, records it, and we can find out how long it was. So Jeremiah was not a married man. In Jeremiah 16, verse 1 and 2, it says, "The word of the Lord came also unto me, saying, Thou shalt not take thee a wife, neither shalt thou have sons or daughters in this place." So God told him, don't get married, don't have children in Judah. And which was good for him, right? He had a busy work. He's like swimming upstream, you could say. He's preaching against the popular preaching of the day, which even today, it's like swimming upstream, right? Like even people that are called Baptists, many of them are preaching false doctrine. Many of them have the wrong salvation. So he starts in the king of Josiah in the 13th year. In Jeremiah 3:6 it says, "The Lord said also unto me in the days of Josiah the king, Hadst thou been that which backsliding Israel hath done? She has gone upon every high mountain and under every green tree, and there hath played the harlot." Okay, so God is telling Jeremiah, you see what Israel has done, backsliding. They're going in the high mountain and every green tree. It says it's played the harlot. No, I don't think that's talking about a physical harlot. That's talking about a spiritual harlot. And they were going and worshiping other gods. Just like a real harlot, well, especially if they're married, they'll go with other men. Here, the children of Israel and the children of Judah, they were worshiping other gods. They're playing the harlot. In Jeremiah 5:8, he puts it this way: "They were as fed horses in the morning, everyone made after his neighbor's wife. Shall I not visit for these things, saith the Lord? Shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this?" Go ye up upon her walls and destroy, but make not a full end. Take away her battlements, for they are not the Lord's. For the house of Israel and the house of Judah have dealt very treacherously against me, saith the Lord. So over and over again in the book of Jeremiah, we see a theme. It's judgment. Mainly it's judgment on Judah and Israel, and then later in the book of Jeremiah, it's judgment on the other countries. But there's judgment on these people. And he's saying, these people are like fed horses, okay? They're fed, and now they're looking for something else to do. They're seeing what else is out there that maybe tastes better, or they think tastes better, or is more pleasant. Like fed horses, they're neighing after their neighbor's wife. In Jeremiah 6, verse 28 to 30, it says, they are all grievous revolters, walking with slanders. They are brass and iron. They are all corrupters. The bellows are burned, the lead is consumed of the fire. The founder melteth in vain, for the wicked are not plucked away. Reprobate silver shall none call them, because the Lord hath rejected them. And this is talking about the children of Judah, children of Israel. And he's saying the bellows are burned. So the bellows is that you try to squish air into the founder. The more air you get, the hotter the fire burns. And because the lead is consumed of the fire. So the lead is burning up already. That's how hot it is. But it says the founder melteth in vain. So what's he trying to do? You're trying to melt metal, but then take the impurities out, right? And he says, for the wicked are not plucked away. So the founder could be God, or it could be the prophets that he sent that is trying to refine the silver. But what does it say in verse 30? It says, reprobate silver shall men call them, because the Lord hath rejected them. That's the reason they're reprobate silver, because the Lord hath rejected them. He tried over and over to refine the silver. You know, it says the bellows are burning, and he added lots of air to try to get it hot enough to purify this liquid metal. But it says, the founder melteth in vain, for the wicked are not plucked away. So reprobate silver shall men call them, because the Lord hath rejected them. And we see over and over that God has rejected the children of Israel here in the book of Jeremiah. And people say, no, God's not done with Israel. He didn't reject them outright. Well, no, he did. Later, a new generation, he brought back. Okay, but this time, these people, he rejected them. Jeremiah chapter 7, and I'm just going to kind of pick up some highlights in Jeremiah. So just kind of do a high-level overview. Jeremiah 7, verse 13. And now, because ye have done all these works, saith the Lord, and I spake unto you, rising up early and speaking, but ye heard not. And I called you, but ye answered not. Therefore will I do unto this house, which is called by my name, wherein ye trust, and unto the place which I gave to you and to your fathers, as I have done to Shiloh. And I will cast you out of my sight, as I have cast out all your brethren, even the whole seed of Ephraim. And pay attention to verse 16. Therefore pray not thou for this people, neither lift up cry nor prayer for them, neither make intercession to me, for I will not hear thee. So he's telling Jeremiah, don't even bother praying for these people. You're not supposed to do it, because he's not going to listen to that. He says, I will not hear thee. But doesn't the Bible say we're supposed to pray for Jerusalem? All these Zionists will say, you got to pray for Jerusalem, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And it's like they worship the land and the people there. It's ridiculous. God has rejected them, and they're still worshiping them. So where they get this pray for the peace of Jerusalem is Psalm 122:1. And it's a short psalm, so I just read the whole thing for you. It's only 9 verses. It says, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Our feet shall stand within the gates of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is builded as a city that is compact together. Whither the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, unto the testimony of Israel, to give thanks unto the name of the Lord. For there are set thrones of judgment, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, they shall prosper that love thee. Peace be within thy walls, and prosperity within thy palaces. For my brethren and companions' sake, I will now say, peace be within thee. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek thy good. So, does this sound like an unrighteous nation or a righteous nation at this time? It's a righteous nation, okay? It's talking about going up to the house of the Lord. And verse 9 is saying, because of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek thy good, okay? this is a righteous nation, and then they're praying for Jerusalem. You should pray for the people of God, but you should not pray for people that hate God. Okay? The haters of God, we should not pray for them for their good. We should pray for our enemies, but not God's enemies. Okay, so that's in chapter 7. Jeremiah 7:16, that's one of the 3 places in Jeremiah where Jeremiah is told, do not pray for the people of Israel. There's 3 different times he gets told that. And chapter 10 is about idols and about some pastors that aren't doing their job. In verse 14 of chapter 10 it says, every man is brutish in his knowledge. Every founder is confounded by the graven image, for his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. So a graven image is an idol that's engraved, you could say. And then verse 21, it says, for the pastors are become brutish. There's that word brutish again. And have not sought the Lord, therefore they shall not prosper, and all their flocks shall be scattered. So what is brutish? In 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 12, it says, but these, as natural brute beasts, made to be taken and destroyed, spake evil of the things that they understand not, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption. Okay, so it's talking about brute beasts. If you look it up in the dictionary, brutish is an adjective which means brutal or cruel, gross, coarse, carnal, sensual, uncivilized, bestial, like an animal. So he's saying these pastors have become like animals. They're cruel, they're coarse, they're sensual, uncivilized. They're basically animals is kind of what you could say for brute. Brutish also means stupid. It's basically you're calling somebody stupid if you call them brutish. Well, like an animal. So these pastors have become brutish because they didn't seek the Lord. For every question you have, you need to seek the Lord. You shouldn't seek spiritual advice from the world. You should go to the Word of God. You should pray to God. But these pastors didn't do that, and that's why they're not going to prosper, and their flock will be scattered. And I think this could be applied to the brutish pastors today. There are many brutish pastors that are not seeking the Lord. They're seeking commentaries. They're seeking church history and things like that. And they should seek the Lord, and they're not going to prosper, okay? And the ones that actually have saved people in their church, I think their flocks can be scattered. They're going to be drawn to churches that actually teach the truth. So that was chapter 10. Chapter 11, verse 13, it says, for according to the number of thy cities were thy gods, O Judah, and according to the number of the streets of Jerusalem have you set up altars to that shameful thing, even altars to burn incense unto Baal. Therefore pray not thou for this people, neither lift up a cry or prayer for them, for I will not hear them in the time that they cry unto me for their trouble. That's a second mention, Jeremiah 11:14. Don't pray for this people. God's telling Jeremiah, don't pray for them. And these people today want to say we should pray for Israel. And they're wicked over there. Like I think it was Tel Aviv is like the homosexual capital of the world, like their best destination to go to. We should not pray for those wicked, God-hating, Christ-rejecting people. And Jeremiah was told 3 times. This is the second time. Chapter 12. I'm just kind of picking some highlights here. Chapter 12, verse 7. I have forsaken mine house, I have left mine heritage. I have given the dearly beloved of my soul into the hand of her enemies. Mine heritage is unto me as a lion in the forest. It crieth out against me, therefore have I hated it. The children of Israel were called the people of God. They were God's heritage. But now it's like to him as a lion in the forest. It cries out against him. They don't want anything to do with God. Therefore, he hates them. He hates those wicked people. Okay? They don't get a free pass because of who their dad was, where their grandpa was. It doesn't matter that they have Jacob to their father or Abraham to their father. God says he could raise up stones to be children of Abraham. Okay? Just because who your dad is doesn't give you a free pass in anything. Unless it's politics and you can maybe get re-elected as the Prime Minister of Canada. I forgot the great last name. So chapter 13, God gets Jeremiah to do an object lesson with a girdle. okay? He tells him to put on this girdle, he wears it, then he's supposed to go hide it under this rock, and then after a certain amount of time, he's supposed to go look at it, and then it's marred. It's good for nothing. And he's basically using that as an example. That's what Israel's like, okay? It's good for nothing anymore. It's useless. Jeremiah 14, verse 10. It says, the Bible says, "Thus saith the Lord unto this people, thus have they loved to wander, they have not refrained their feet, therefore the Lord doth not accept them. He will now remember their iniquity and visit their sins. Then said the Lord unto me, Pray not for this people for their good. When they fast, I will not hear their cry, and when they offer burnt offering and an oblation, I will not accept them, but I will consume them by the sword, by the famine, and by the pestilence." And that is a theme over and over again in Jeremiah, that he's going to destroy. He's going to destroy Judah. He's been long suffering with them. It's not like he just had a quick temper and boom, he's going to destroy them. He sent prophets over and over to them, trying to get them to change their ways, and they're not. So now he said he's going to destroy them with a sword, with a famine, and by the pestilence. Sword, that's an enemy coming and fighting with a sword or other weapons. And famine, for some of you younger people that don't know, that's when you don't have food to eat. The land that isn't growing crops, or for some reason you can't get to them, you don't have food and you get hungry. You get so hungry you wish for anything to eat, and you just think about food all the time because you're so hungry. And then pestilence is when bugs come, all sorts of bugs. It could be flies and grasshoppers and different things. There's a bunch of examples in Exodus when God pours out the plagues on the children of Israel. One of them was flies, one was locusts, like these big grasshoppers, lice. Just imagine having lice and you're all itchy and it's getting into everything. Pestilence is one that maybe doesn't sound as bad when you first hear, but what's a matter of a couple of bugs? But when you've got swarms of them, and they're getting into everything, your ants getting into your food, or whatever kind of pestilence it is, it's not pleasant. But this is the last mention where God says directly in those words that Jeremiah is not supposed to pray for this people. He doesn't say he can't pray for this people. He says don't pray for them for their good. You can pray against them, okay? That God will destroy them. But it says pray not for this people for their good. He's not going to hear when those people pray to him now. Now it's too late. Chapter 15. Verse 1, "Then said the Lord unto me, Though Moses and Samuel stood before me, yet my mind could not be toward this people. Cast them out of my sight, and let them go forth." So you say, even if Moses and Samuel stood before him, it's like these righteous prophets, okay? Even if they're standing before him pleading, like, how many times did Moses not make intercession to God for the children of Israel and how wicked things they've done? Like, even after he made this golden calf and worship and had this weird party and things like that, Moses, he prayed to God, and God listened to Moses because Moses was righteous. But he's saying, in this case, it wouldn't even help if both of those guys were there. He would still destroy them. He's still going to throw them out of his sight, and he just says, get rid of them. Let them go forth. Verse 2, "And it shall come to pass, if they say unto thee, Whither shall we go forth? Then thou shalt tell them, Thus saith the Lord, such as for death to death, and such as for the sword to the sword, and such as for the famine to the famine, and such as for the captivity to the captivity." Same kind of theme here. You got basically three options. The fourth one was captivity. And so it's sword, famine, or death. Okay? And then captivity. "And I will appoint over them 4 kinds, saith the Lord, the sword to slay, the dogs to tear, the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the earth to devour and destroy. And I will cause them to be removed into all kingdoms of the earth, because of Manasseh, the son of Hezekiah, king of Judah, for that which he did in Jerusalem." And remember, Manasseh repented at the end of his life, but it was already, he had done such wicked things. Just for an example, if you're going to follow along to 2 Kings 21, just keep your finger in Jeremiah, we're going to go back there. 2 Kings 21, verse 3, it starts there, "For he built up again the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed." This is talking about Manasseh. "And he reared up altars for Baal, and made a grove, as did Ahab, king of Israel, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served them. And he built altars in the house of the Lord, of which the Lord said, in Jerusalem will I put my name. And he built altars for the host of heaven. For all the host of heaven. And he built altars for all the host of heaven in the two courts of the house of the Lord. And he made his son pass through the fire, and observed times, and used enchantments, and dealt with familiar spirits and wizards. He wrought much wickedness in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. So you can hear this list of wicked things he did. You know, he built up these high places that his dad had destroyed. Okay, and he's worshiping the host of heaven. What does that mean? Worshiping the moon, the sun, the stars. Those aren't gods. That's what God has created. And to top it off, he builds an altar in the house of the Lord. Altars, plural, more than one. And he makes his son pass through the fire. And this is a wicked thing that happened. They would put their babies in the fire. Like, how cruel isn't that? Like, that's just wicked. You can see why God got mad at him. And he observed times he used enchantment. He used it into witchcraft. Kind of like Harry Potter kind of stuff. Just wicked witchcraft and wizards and things like that. He did much wickedness in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger, the Bible says. So you can see why God was mad because of Manasseh. And when we read there in Jeremiah chapter 15, it was because of Manasseh that he was doing this. It didn't matter that he repented. That helped for Manasseh personally, but that didn't help for the children of Israel. But in chapter 18, there's a story about God kind of uses this illustration of potter and clay. This potter's making a vessel out of clay, and then it doesn't turn out right. So he just remakes it because it's still soft, right? You can make it into a different vessel again. Okay? But then in chapter 19, he's got an example of this broken bottle, this bottle that he breaks for an example. He says, you can't put this back together to work the way it should. And so that's also made out of clay. It's a potter's bottle, but the difference is now it's hardened. Okay? Now the potter has hardened it. Now it's too late to make it into something else. Okay? And God uses that example that it's too late. Chapter 20, there's a guy, he's the chief governor. His name was Pashur. And he smites Jeremiah. And smite means he could slap him, he could punch him, whatever he does, he hits him. And he puts him in the stocks overnight. Now, I don't know if any of you, most of you have read stories where they used to put people in stocks. So they had this thing made of wood or metal or whatever. You stuck your head in there, and you put your arms in there, and you were stuck. You couldn't move your arms. People make fun of you. They could throw stuff at you, eggs or rocks or whatever. And he was in there overnight. And in the moral, it says he released them. I guess with his preaching, he made this Pashur mad. Because what happens in chapter 20? In 21, verse 1, the word which came unto Jeremiah from the Lord, when King Zedekiah said unto him, Pashur, the son of Micaiah, and Zephaniah, the son of Maasai, the priest, saying, okay, so Jeremiah 21, now it's King Zedekiah. Okay, there's been a couple of kings between Josiah and Zedekiah. But notice this, King Zedekiah, chapter 21. Chapter 23. It says, woe, verse 1, chapter 23, verse 1, woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, saith the Lord. So this is another recurring theme. This is with pastors that are destroying God's flock. It keeps coming up in the book of Jeremiah. And then, chapter 24, there's this illustration of two baskets of figs. There's some good figs that are really good, and then there's bad figs that are really bad. Okay, that brings us to Jeremiah chapter 25. Jeremiah 25, verse 1. So remember, chapter 21, we're till King Zedekiah. Chapter 25, verse 1. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, that was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, the which Jeremiah the prophet spake unto all the people of Judah and to all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, from the 13th year of Josiah the son of Ammon, king of Judah, even unto this day, that is the 23rd year, the word of the Lord hath come unto me, and I have spoken unto you, rising early and speaking, but ye have not hearkened. Okay, so this is the 4th year of King Jehoiakim. But the thing is, Jehoiakim was king before Zedekiah. So chapter 24 is kind of where it ceases to be chronological, and now it's rewinding a bit to go to King Jehoiakim. And you'll see in the Bible it keeps switching back and forth between the kings in Jeremiah. You've got to pay attention to where it is, because all of a sudden it's talking about children of Israel going to Babylon, and all of a sudden they're back, and they're talking about they will have to go there. And although there was two sets of captivities that went there, you've got to pay attention to where you are in the timeline. So one way to tell is, this statement keeps coming up. It says, the word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying. So then you kind of can see this is another set of instructions or another prophecy from God. Could be in a different time period. Because what he's doing is he's recounting a different time that he got word from the Lord. So the question we asked before was, how long was Jeremiah preaching? Okay, we just read in verse 3 of chapter 25, it says, from the 13th year of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, even unto this day, that is the 23rd year, the word of the Lord hath come unto me, and I have spoken unto you, rising early and speaking, but ye have not hearkened. Okay, so it says, from 13th year of Josiah unto this day, which is the 4th year of King Jehoiakim. He says, even unto this day, that is the 23rd year. That doesn't mean the 23rd year of Josiah. It's the 23rd year of... Because the thing is, in 2 Kings 22:21, it says, Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jedediah, the daughter of Pedaiah of Boscath. So Josiah reigned 31 years altogether, and Jeremiah started preaching at 13. Okay? So 31 subtract 13 is 18. But if you started at the beginning of the 13th year, that would make it 19 years. It can't be 23 years of King Josiah that he's speaking, because then it would already be the 31st year plus 4 years of Jehoiakim plus whatever was in between him. Okay, you see that more than 3 points. This is the 23rd year of Jeremiah preaching. So once we got to the 4th year of Jehoiakim, he'd already been preaching 23 years. That's a long time to do any kind of job. But for 23 years, he was preaching. Okay, so we start off with Josiah. He reigned 31 years, okay? Jeremiah started at the 13th year, so there's about 19 years. Anywhere between 18 and 19 years of end of Josiah's reign that Jeremiah was there. Then, 2 Kings 23:31, it talks about Jehoahaz. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. So he was only there three months. So God got rid of him like in short order. And then after him was Jehoiakim. Okay? And Jehoiakim at this time was 4 years in. So if you add up the 19 years of Josiah, the 3 months, which could fall into that 19 years total, and then 4 years of Jehoiakim, you're at 23 years. So that's what Jeremiah's talking about. At this point in time, he's already preached for 23 years. But he's not done. He goes all the way past Zedekiah going into captivity. Okay, so I'm going to read now 2 Kings 23. You can go there. Just remember, we come back to Jeremiah. 2 Kings 23, verse 32. 2 Kings 23:32, the Bible says, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done. This is just continuing on with Jehoahaz, that we just read that he reigned 3 months. So 2 Kings 23:32, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done. And Pharaoh Necho put him in bands at Riblah in the land of Hamath, that he might not reign in Jerusalem, and put the land to a tribute of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. Now this town Riblah, you'll hear again later, and I believe it's on. I just reading through where God sets up the boundaries of the children of Israel, and I believe it's on the eastern border. Okay? So he puts this Jehoahaz, he puts him in bands, he puts him in jail, in other words. Okay? And then he puts a tax on the land of Jerusalem, 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. Verse 34, and Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim, the son of Josiah, so this will be Jehoahaz's brother. Eliakim, the son of Josiah, king in the room of Josiah his father, and turned his name to Jehoiakim. He took Jehoahaz away and he came to Egypt and died. So we just read about the 4th year of Jehoiakim. His real name was Eliakim, but Pharaoh changed it. Okay, so that was the 2 kings after Josiah. 2 Chronicles 36 is kind of a parallel passage, starting in verse 1. Then the people of the land took Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, and made him king in his father's stead in Jerusalem. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And the king of Egypt put him down at Jerusalem, condemned land in 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And the king of Egypt made Eliakim his brother king over Judah and Jerusalem, and turned his name to Jehoiakim. And Necho took Jehoahaz his brother and carried him to Egypt. Okay, Jeremiah chapter 22. Look at Jeremiah chapter 22. Jeremiah 22, verse 11. It says, for thus saith the Lord touching Shallum, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, which reigned instead of Josiah's father, which went forth out of this place, he shall not return thither any more, but he shall die in the place whither they have led him captive, shall see this land no more. Well, here, is this a 3rd son of Josiah? No, actually it's not. This is Shallum, the son of Josiah, and this is actually before we get to that, we'll just keep reading here a little bit, verse 18. Therefore, thus saith the Lord concerning Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah. So, this is not talking about Jehoiakim, so we know it's not Jehoiakim. They shall not lament for him, saying, ah, my brother, or ah, sister. They shall not lament for him, saying, ah, Lord, or ah, his glory. He shall be buried with the burial of an ass, drawn and cast forth beyond the gates of Jerusalem. So, we know this is not Jehoiakim, he's talking about Shallum. So I think Shallum was actually Jehoahaz's name. Because if you go to 1 Chronicles 3:15, it says, and the sons of Josiah were the firstborn, Johanan, the second Jehoiakim, the 3rd Zedekiah, the 4th Shallum. And the sons of Jehoiakim, Jeconiah his son, Zedekiah his son. See how it's confusing? There's 2 Zedekiahs even. And so Jehoiakim was king after Jehoahaz. Well, there's no Jehoahaz listed as Josiah's children. But here in Jeremiah 22 is talking about Shallum. Shallum's actually the 4th son of Josiah. And I believe he was, either his name got changed to Jehoahaz later, or it got changed to Shallum later. Either which way, Shallum is Jehoahaz, is the way I understand it. In 2 Chronicles 36, and you can turn there, there's quite a bit of information there in 2 Chronicles 36. 2 Chronicles 36, verse 5. The Bible reads, Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord his God. Against him came up Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and bound him in fetters to carry him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried of the vessels of the house of the Lord to Babylon, and put them in his temple at Babylon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and his abominations which he did, and that which was found in him, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. And Jehoiakim, his son, reigned in his stead. So Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. And when the year was expired, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babylon with the goodly vessels of the house of the Lord, and made Zedekiah his brother king over Judah and Jerusalem. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. Okay, so just kind of get an overview. Josiah was king, okay? And then his son, Jehoahaz, became king. But then the Pharaoh put him in bonds and put in Eliakim, his brother, in as king, which changed the name to Jehoiakim. Okay, after Jehoiakim, his son Jeconiah became king. And Jeconiah, he only reigned for 3 months and 10 days, and then he got carried with the first captivity to Babylon. Okay, he got carried away, and then what they did is they took Zedekiah, his uncle, which was Jehoiakim's brother, made him. So it wasn't his brother Zedekiah that the king made Babylon made king, but it was his uncle Zedekiah. And of course, Zedekiah did wickedly. He also rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar, and then later on in 2 Chronicles 36, they captured Jerusalem and they burned it. Even though Jeremiah had warned Zedekiah, he says, you know, just give yourself up to Babylon and things will be good for you. And he didn't listen. And instead, he tries to make it out. And what happens? They get captured anyway because they run out of food. They try to escape. They capture him. They kill his sons in front of his eyes, and then they poke out his eyes. So the last thing he will remember seeing is his children being killed in front of his eyes. And then after that, he can't see anymore. That'd be a bad way to go. And then they don't kill him right away, so he has some time to think about it. They take him into captivity. And so Israel is in captivity until Babylon gets taken over by the king of Persia. You're still there in 2 Chronicles 36. Look at verse 22. It says, "Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord spoken by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth hath the Lord God of heaven given me, and he hath charged me to build him an house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Who is there among you of all his people? The Lord his God be with him, and let him go up." So that's where the book of Chronicles ends. And then the next book in order is Ezra, where it talks about rebuilding. Okay? And so God punishes Israel, but he does, after they paid their Sabbaths, they paid their 70 years, then they get to come back in the land. And this is similar to 2 Kings 24. It said the same thing about, first of all, Jehoahaz was after Josiah. And then, and his name was also Shalom, is the way I understand it. And then Eliakim, his brother, but he got changed to Jehoiakim. And Jehoiakim's son, Jehoiakim, he got brought away with the first captivity, and he stayed in there actually, at least till the 37th year in captivity. It doesn't say when he died in here. But in 2 Kings 24, verse 14, it talks about this captivity that. And actually, we'll start in verse 12. And Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, we'll end here, just because I'm running out of time. But in 2 Kings 24, verse 12, it says, "And Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother, and his servants, and his princes, and his officers. And the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign, and he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house. Cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon king of Israel had made in the temple of the Lord, as the Lord had said. And he carried away all Jerusalem, and all the princes, and all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained, save the poorest sort of the people of the land. And he carried away Jehoiakim to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, and his officers, and the mighty of the land. Those carried he into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. And all the men of might, even 7,000, and craftsmen and smiths 1,000, all that were strong and apt for war, even them the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon." Okay, so verse 14 says 10,000 captives altogether. Okay, so all the strong and mighty men, the ones that he could use for soldiers, he took along. Because remember, he's trying to conquer the whole world, so he can use them to fight in some foreign battlefield. And so 10,000 people, but then in verse 16 it breaks it down. It says there's 7,000 that are men of might. Okay, those are the soldiers. And then it says craftsmen and smiths, 1,000. So what's a smith? It's a blacksmith. It's somebody that heats up iron and hammers it and works it into nails or into a sword or into a shield. Obviously he had use for people like that. And craftsmen, people that could build stuff. Okay? These were useful people. And then this is actually something, you think about it, it's actually a good idea to have a skill, to have a trade. Because you're actually useful. You're even useful to a conquering enemy. But now, the point I'm trying to make, though, is 7,000 soldiers and 1,000 craftsmen and smiths. That's only 8,000 people. While the rest of them were probably women and children, right? Because we know Daniel was, I think, part of the first captivity. He was a young child. Okay, so I think they brought children that they saw some potential in, that they could teach the sciences and the knowledge of the Babylonians. So it's not that the Bible made a contradiction. It's 10,000, but it's only 7,000, 1,000. It's just 2,000 they don't list as having a specific trade or a specific skill. So we'll leave the rest for next Sunday. That's only about halfway through, not even halfway through the book of Jeremiah. But it's interesting how there's recurrent themes in the Bible. You know, it's the sword, it's the pestilence, the famine. It goes over and over, but that's how he's going to destroy Judah. And he gives us so many warnings. Remember, this is the first time of captivity. Later on, and I think this was in the 9th year of Nebuchadnezzar, in the 11th year, they're again besieged, and they again lose, and then, you know, there's some more people that get to go to Babylon. I mean get to, because the rest of them got killed, except for very few people that he left there to care for the land. So they had warning. They even had one time of people leaving, but they also had these battles and things like that, and they had prophets warning over and over and over again, like, this is what's going to happen. Jeremiah, he preached over and over again. Sword, pestilence, famine, captivity. Like, wake up, there's trouble coming. The people didn't hear, and then, of course, there's all these false prophets contradicting him and smiting him and things like that. Just like today, you try to preach the true gospel, there's people saying you got to repent of your sins. Okay, you say there's eternal security, you say no, you can lose it. And there's all these types even today. So that's one of the recurring themes is the judgment. The other one that keeps coming up also is these pastors that are brutish, that aren't teaching their people, and their flocks will be scattered. So let's pray.